Craig Breslow, kind enough to join us here. Thanks so much for dropping by.
You're welcome. My pleasure.
You said when you made the Rafael Devers trade, it was the hardest thing you've ever had to do. The timing of the trade, I think, when fans react, that's why they get angry. That's why they get bitter. The Red Sox had won 5 in a row, as you know, had swept the Yankees. There was a great feeling in the ballpark of hope and, you know, some euphoria there. And then bang, the best hitter is gone in the lineup. So I want to ask you about how much consideration went into the timing of that deal and why.
Yeah, a lot of consideration, and there's never a great time to trade a player like Rafael Devers. And when I talk about how hard of a decision it was to make, the timing is part of it. You know, guys are feeling good, fans are excited, there's a ton of energy in the stadium, and something like that disrupts it pretty significantly. But you just never know when the opportunity is going to come up and when you have to take advantage of it.
Narvaez stroking this one down the line. Is it going to get out? And it is. It's gone. Carlos Narvaez with a quick answer there as he knocks one out past the pesky pole. Red Sox have been taking aim at that here in recent series. It's 2-1.
Yeah, I like that. You know, normally when I hop on here, it's like, man, how quickly can these innings go by? But when I come in the bottom half, I hope that we're sitting here talking 20, 30 minutes from now. But no, getting back to the timing of that, it was really, really tough. But when two teams are talking about a trade like this, and you feel like you're kind of getting to the point where it's time to either execute on this or not, you have to make the hard decision to just do what you think is best, recognizing there's going to be a ton of criticism and it's going to get really loud, and I understand that.
Did it come down to the Giants are willing to take the deal? They're taking the entire contracts, $254 million left, and they're saying right now either take it or it's going to disappear.
There's so much that goes into a trade, especially like this, and it's always really hard to know how much is negotiating and posturing and how much is reality. But no, it wasn't any one factor. You know, it's a combination of all of those things, and you know, we really like the players that we were getting back, and you talk about those a lot, and you go back and forth and say, hey, this guy needs to be part of the deal, or you know, it would be great if we got this guy, but I think there's maybe a deal here still if we don't. But you know, I think zooming out a little bit, like you still say it's really unfortunate that we got to this place where you know the outcome was such that like it just felt like the only way to go was to give both sides a fresh start.
Yeah, the story smacking a base hit to left.
You know, you start having to look at, you know, where does culture and roster flexibility, financial flexibility, does that outweigh the production that you get from a bat like that? And there's really no equation to figure that out, and that's just more of a feel thing on your part and the situation at hand, I guess.
Yeah, and we've both been part of winning teams and winning teams here, and so is Rafi. So, you know, I don't want to overstate some of those things, but at the same time, you know, we weren't coming together as a team in a way where we were winning enough games. That's the bottom line. And you know, the vision for the roster that we're building is one that's athletic and dynamic and able to impact the game across all aspects, right? So not just in the box, but on the bases, on defense, and I think the flexibility that we have now enables us to do that. And what we're after is building the most complete team that we can. And I think this is a step toward that when you zoom out a little bit.
So, talking about building a team and then looking at the team, this roster right now, and then you start, obviously there's a lot of games that can be played before now and the end of July, and what's going to alter what you guys do in that situation with the trade deadline. But if you are to prioritize the needs for this team, what would that be right now?
Yeah, I think it's no secret that after Garrett, who has been dominant all season, the starting pitching has been inconsistent, and you can kind of track our success by the performance of our starting pitcher. We saw that yesterday, and Lucas has been really good for about a month now. You know, and so consistent starting pitching is definitely going to be a priority for us, and we've got to figure out, you know, whether it's Tanner getting back into form and getting healthy, or someone like Kyle Harrison who can step into the rotation, or Bayo maybe turning the corner, how that compares to what might be available externally. But we're going to look, you know, at starting pitching. Obviously, Tristan, you know, got hurt, will be lost for the season, and I don't want to undervalue.
Little loop into left, diving ahead. Clase trying to get back to first. Story. He will dive in safe. One man away, Jarren Duran making the out as we continue to chat with Chief Operating Officer Craig Breslow. Speaking from the fan standpoint, we're fans too, and so are you. It's $254 million off the books, and fans are, okay, what are you going to do with all that money? And I don't mean at the end of the season when it's free agent season. I mean right now, to get thumped back in the lineup, guys who can hit home runs back in the lineup. That's what they're looking to you to go, well, you got all that flexibility now. What are you going to do with it? And it's a weird time maybe to take advantage of that.
Yeah, so we have financial flexibility, no doubt about that. But the trade deadline, you have to behave differently, and teams behave differently at the trade deadline than they do in free agency, mostly in that money alone isn't the only way to get players. But the flexibility does give us, you know, the opportunity to take on contracts, take on players, and so we intend to be aggressive in looking for upgrades, and the more paths that we have to do that, the better. We also have a really deep farm system, and the ability to make trades from that system to help our big league team.
So you see a lot of these trades obviously end up happening the last week before the deadline, up until obviously the bell. Is that because a lot of teams hold on for value purposes, and if you were to make a trade here pretty early, you'd have to give up more than if you waited?
I think it's two things. I think one, with the playoff structure the way that it is, more teams see themselves as potentially being playoff teams, and they want to give their guys as much of a chance as possible to show that they deserve to be added to and improve the roster. And so it's really hard to decide, in June that you are kind of out of the playoff picture, especially as 12 teams are making the postseason, right? And then the other thing is, teams tend to operate differently when there's this rigid deadline in place, and you tend not to get a team's best offer right up until the 11th hour. And so teams have learned that by holding on, you can typically get a little bit more.
Sadon at the plate, and the 0-2, he checked and he was able to hold that. Some of the media covering the Toronto Blue Jays we've been chatting with throughout the series, and they were like, whatever happened to the Red Sox lineups that we used to come in and really fear? You played on a number of those with guys like Big Papi and Mike Napoli, Dustin Pedroia, dangerous hitters up and down the lineup, deep lineups, and you can't say this is anywhere near that. So in your mind, in your head, are you thinking that way too, like we've got to get back to being the Red Sox that really put fear into people?
Well, I think we need to be a team that other teams hate playing against, and they hate coming to Fenway Park. And finally, this year, at least in the first half, we've been a better team at home than we have been on the road, and a better team at home than we have been in the past.
Another stolen base here for Trevor Story has been perfect this year.
Yeah. But there are a lot of ways to be a team that other teams hate to play against, and competing and putting the ball in play with 2 strikes and playing really clean defense and running the bases aggressively and having that be part of your identity and being this dynamic athletic team is another way, not just hitting the ball out of the park.
You mentioned defense. The Red Sox have committed 71 errors. You look at it every day. You look at all the analytics every day. Does it gall you as much as it does everybody else?
Absolutely. I mean, it's an obsession of ours. It's something that we talk about every single day. And what the mistakes and errors that we're making on our big league team has forced us to do is look at.
Driven into left, Clase, over his head. Trevor Story's going to score. Rafael's having a big June. Best offensive month of his career. He's tied the game.
So what I was going to say is it's forced us to look at how we're approaching teaching these fundamentals in the minor leagues, because guys who have been in the system and have come up, what they're doing in the big leagues is really just a symptom of what they've been instructed to do and taught to do in the minor leagues. And so over the last few months, we've seen that our out conversion in the minor leagues is not very good. And it's a credit to the PD staff to take a hard look at that and change the way that we're training and change the priorities and what we're focusing on and what we're giving feedback on.
And while we have you here too, what do you see with Walker Buehler? I know it's frustrating for him and everybody involved, and the stuff, from my vantage point, the stuff looks good. It's got to be mechanical, because the command is his biggest issue in my eyes.
For sure, and that's what I would have said too. Is it's easy to look at the stuff and say, you know, the fastball's been up to 96 today, and the shape of the breaking balls looks pretty good. But you know, two long home runs today, a home run to lead off the game that the first pitch that he threw in Anaheim, followed by a bunch of walks. And you know, I think when you give up hard contact, I'd say this knowing as a guy who's given up hard contact, the response can be feeling like you need to execute perfect pitches, and then you find yourself in 2-0 counts and 3-1 counts, and it becomes this cycle that's really hard to stop. I think it's, you know, for Walker, it's a matter of trusting that the stuff is good enough that he can get guys out in the strike zone.
Nate Eaton, the hitter here, as we continue to talk with Craig Breslow with a runner at second. Red Sox have bounced back to tie it, starting with the Carlos Narvaez home run. He continues to be a major find for you and for the Boston Red Sox. You know, people don't want to hear about any of the positives. I get that right now, the way things are going. They don't want to hear anything good about anything. And when you're the Red Sox and you're 41 and 43, I get that, and you understand that.
And we don't spend a ton of time on the positives either. You know, we have not been the team that we thought we would be, or the team that we know we're capable of being. So we're focused on what we can do to fix those problems.
Well, certainly there have been a lot of problems, and this is going back to before you arrived in your position, that have to be fixed. I think you've touched on a number of those things. 2-1 on the ground to third. Clement will gobble that up and skipped it over there, but dug out by Vladdy Guerrero with Rafael holding at second base. How about the development of the young kids to this point? Roman's coming off 3 hits yesterday. Myers played some really good defense. He scuffled at home plate. Has it been pretty much what you thought based on, you know, when they first came up from the minors?
There's definitely an adjustment period here. You know, each of those guys, and I'll include Christian in the conversation. Each of those guys is a little bit different, has a little bit different skill set, and I think we've seen, you know, Roman is a guy who really controls the strike zone, and even though the traditional line of batting average and stuff hasn't been, you know, what maybe we would have expected, he's hitting the ball really hard. He's having really good at bats. He's not chasing. He's taking a ton of walks, and I think that's what our expectation was. Marcelo is a guy who you can see he just has this internal clock to where it doesn't seem like anything speeds up on him, right? On offense, on defense, and I think that's something that's innate. I don't know that you can teach that. It's something that our scouts talked about when you know, he was drafted as a high school shortstop. And then Christian, you see this raw athlete, and you say, like, this guy's he's gonna put it all together, and when he does, he's gonna be a real impact in this league. And he did for a while, and then now there's the adjustment period, and we felt like the right place for him to make those adjustments was in AAA. And we'll figure out if we're right, but you know, there's progress to be made there for sure.
Strike three and the strikeout. Greg, thanks so much for dropping by. Appreciate it very much.
You got it. Thanks, guys.
Craig Breslow with us, and this one tied up 2-2.